What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Red Shirts Remastered. I am Chris, hanging out with the ledge himself, David March, the Spy Guy. What's going on, David? How you doing today?
Oh, not much. I was going to mention that I have the worst luck with docking stations at work.
Yeah.
I had a power surge, like only went out for 1 second, and it blew up my docking station for work. Nothing else. The laptop's fine, the mouse is fine, the keyboard's fine. And speaking about surges, we're going to talk about Stargate.
That's one way to segue. I like it. Yeah. Power surges, wormholes, lots of surges. I don't know where surges came in, and Stargate, but yes, we're about to talk about Stargate for a long time.
Yeah, right.
Just not a long time on this video, a long time in general, because it's a long series. And we're going to go episode by episode and review them.
Yeah. So only 17 seasons, and we're talking old school seasons of like 20 episodes each, plus movies.
Yep. And back in the day when season and season premieres and finales were longer, so you have like 2-part season premieres, or in this case 2-part series premieres, which back in 1997 Stargate premiered on Showtime with Children of the Gods Part 1 and 2. It was separated back then into 2 weeks, obviously. We're going to obviously cover it as one episode. Yeah. Because now when you go on streaming, for here in the United States, it's on Amazon. Not sure about up there.
Oh, yeah, that's what I have.
Oh, okay. And so just a little interesting tidbit is they kind of censor some stuff, and we'll talk about that.
That's true. I noticed that.
Yeah, on Amazon, because they want it to be suitable for all audiences. At this point, back on Showtime, obviously, it was a cable network channel, still is. You had to pay extra for Showtime everywhere, and they could do some things that they can't do on network television. That if you go watch it on, say, this is Sci-Fi Channel still a thing?
I believe so.
And Sci-Fi Channel or Pluto TV or anything like that, you're going to get the censored version because they have to make it, again, suitable for all audiences. First, let's kind of summarize the episode a little bit. Starts off with a bunch of soldiers sitting in the gate room playing. Looks like some form of poker. I'm not sure what form they were playing. They just were flipping cards and saying things, and it didn't sound like they were really being coherent about the game they were playing. They were just using it as a segue conversation to get to the part about the gate activating. So the gate activates, it starts moving. The woman, the only female soldier there, convenient plotting, the only female. They couldn't have added like 1 or 2 extra females, like had it be like, so that it wasn't so obvious that which one was going to get taken.
Right.
But she goes up and it's like, the gate's moving. And all of a sudden everything starts shaking. The gate activates and out come the guards. We're not going to say what they're called yet because this is as if you're first learning about the episode. The guards come out. They've got these big snake heads. And then this big other snakehead that's more golden comes out. That is, and he opens up, and there you have this guy who you're like, oh my God, is Ra alive? that's what they all think, and and then they grab the female. And then the other snakehead to the right of the golden snakehead opens, and oh my God, new generation kids, it's Kratos and Christopher Judge. And that's watching that episode now. It's like, man, what does a new generation think of of when this opens and they see Kratos, who has the longest speech in award ceremony history, from the Game Awards a couple of years ago, when he accepted his lead actor in a video game award for being Kratos in the God of War series, and that's how people know him now, is as Kratos, and I know him as Teal'c, and so Teal'c has this woman. Oh yes, she'll make a fine specimen. Blah blah blah, and then shooting ensues. People die. Oh wait, and then after people die, in comes General Hammond.
Before we get to that, there's a couple of things I wanted to point out.
Sure.
That I kind of noticed in that whole battle is that what's happening is we see this corruption of Kratos starting, where he yes, the humans these people have guns, and even the god who there is like, holy shit, they're killing my men.
Yep.
Like, this is not supposed to work this way.
That you see him have this look on his face, like he's really good with his facial expressions.
Right.
That's a big part of Teal'c's character that we'll get on as we do this series, is these expressions, these looks, these mannerisms that Teal'c has really make
man of few words.
Yeah. Because he's a man of few words, exactly. That's perfect. He really his mannerisms make him a lot. And so you do make a great point there. What's another interesting point is after the fighting has stopped and they cut to and this is possibly, I think, another thing that is cut because it was cut from the Showtime part. It was in the Showtime original cut, I believe, is when they all of a sudden, when they cut to the soldiers running down the hallway, before they cut to that, the gate's not activated. When they get there, the gate is activated. But right before that, Apophis, who is the name of the god, tells Teal'c his head Jaffa, his
bodyguard.
Yep, to which what the bodyguards are called. The guards are called Jaffa. There's a reason of what they are, though. We'll get to that in a little bit on this episode. And he tells him to do something in a different language. We don't know what. But then when they get to the guards get there, the gate's activated. And I think in the Showtime they show someone using a wrist thing. Because if you look at Teal'c's wrist when they get there, when General Hammond gets there, he's got something sticking out that's like looks like a panel or something that he could dial off of.
Right.
Which is, I'm in these groups for Stargate on Facebook, and these people always pose that question. They're like, wait, how'd they dial the gate? And people explain, they had a wrist device, which is very interesting because later in the show, what happened to these wrist devices?
I think those wrist devices are similar to what the head guy has, but yeah, it does make sense that we don't really see them when other Jaffa defect.
Yeah,
get that technology brought up.
Yeah, exactly. We see it's all about and so it's all about that dialing device that we'll talk about later. And so then basically that's you get the credits then of the start. The guy's eyes glow like Roz did. General Hammond, who's Don S. Davis, who I'll say right now was in a bunch of MacGyver stuff with Richard Dean Anderson, which is one of the reasons he was brought in, because he's worked with Richard Dean Anderson before, and you get the credits and the theme song. It just is a really good theme song.
Yep.
That's
the movie.
Yep. It's the same theme from the movie, just a little altered a little bit, obviously, to steal it right from the movie. There are little things all over the place that are done like that are so that they're not directly from the movie. So speaking of one of those, the opening scene after the credits is at Colonel O'Neill's house, which you would remember from the movie as who?
Jack O'Neill with 1L.
With 1L, played by Kurt Russell. Now this is Richard Dean Anderson's Jack O'Neill with
2L's.
2L's. And there's this other O'Neill with 1L, and he doesn't have a sense of humor at all.
Which is true.
Which is very true. Kurt Russell was not like the characters, totally different, as we'll see as the series go on. And so
I want to talk a little bit about what we've kind of left off, is that the events of the movie happened a year ago.
Yeah.
So
yes. They don't even really say that though until you get O'Neill back into the SGC.
Mm-hmm. I think I heard some of the guards at the beginning say something like, "Oh yeah, they shut this down to this place a year ago. They're about to ship out the gate."
Yeah, I thought they've been shipping people out of here for the past few months, I think is what they said. But we still don't know how long it's been after the events exactly until what's his name? General Hammond and Colonel O'Neill talk. And they talk about a year ago, blah, 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 you did this mission. He's like, oh, I know, I was there. But anyway, so they go get Colonel O'Neill and say, oh, it's about the Stargate. And he's like, no, I'm not coming in. And they're like, it's about the Stargate. So then he's coming in. Yeah. And so he comes in, and what's really funny about these next couple of parts is that we get to see some of the soldiers from the movie played by different actors. Right. And so you get O'Neill coming in, who's already played by a different actor, and he's talking, and he's saying, oh, yeah, there's no way that anyone could come through there. We destroyed the gate. We blew it up, blah, blah, blah. He's lying through his teeth because, as we all know from the movie, Daniel Jackson is still on Abydos. And so and so then he's walking and he's leaving, and he passes by and sees Kowalski and Ferretti. Ferretti, if you remember, was played by French Stewart. So every time I see Ferretti, I think of French Stewart. And I'm like, this guy's trying to be a little bit like French Stewart, and he's not succeeding. So then finally, General Hammond's like, oh, well, if there's no one there and they're all dead, we'll just set another nuke through. Just a stronger one this time. Make sure that no one can use the gate. Because when they dial the gate, it dials, apparently. And then they probably tested that, I'm guessing. And they're getting this bomb ready. And he's like, you can't do that. There's people alive there.
Want to adjust your story there, son?
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly what he says. It's just the Hammond from Texas. Hammond from Texas does.
Yeah.
But
it's always interesting. I was also curious to see that some of the actors who would go on to be in every episode, some of the stock characters were already there, like the sergeant who always does the chevron thing.
Yep. And but if you have subtitles on like I do, they just call him technician in the first episode, and he's eventually Walter. And apparently he was supposed to be Walter Davis, but they had to change his name because they had the other Major Davis. But that's a story for another episode. Yeah. Then he's like, well, we'll still send the bomb through. And then he's like, oh, well, don't do that. Daniel's alive, blah, blah. Yeah. I know how to get a message to him. And he goes and gets a box of tissues and just throws it through. And they wait the day, and the gate activates and comes through, says, thanks, send more. So they go into the briefing room, they're talking, and General Hammond's like, oh, Captain Carter is coming in from the Pentagon. O'Neill's like, oh, when's he coming in? Coming in. We're waiting for Captain Carter to come in. Oh, where's he transferring from? She's transferring from the Pentagon. So then you have
Carter saying that.
Yeah, Carter saying that, and she comes in, Amanda Tapping comes in and introduces herself. There's some banter. The one of the most memorable lines from the show of, just because my reproductive parts are on the inside, yours are on the outside, doesn't mean I can't do the same exact things you can do. And he's like, oh, it's nothing against women, I just don't like scientists. So they go get Daniel. They're trying to go get Daniel. Daniel's like, well, I think there's other places. It couldn't have been from this Stargate because there hasn't been anybody here coming through. So he's like, let me show you this big room that has all these different symbols. And as you can see to my left, my right, if I'm doing it, but it's to my left on the screen, there's that cartouche of the home address that dials Earth.
Okay.
And from Abydos or any other place. And from Abydos, actually, I think. And so then they go and they say, oh, these are all addresses. And Daniel and Carter geek out together and talk about planetary drift. Yeah. Daniel forgot to mention about O'Neill being very happy to see Skara, who is played by the same actor as from the movie. One of two actors that is from the same actor from the movie. Him and Daniel Jackson's wife, Shari, whose name they changed from Shari.
I didn't remember that.
Yeah. But the same actor plays her father from the movie.
Yeah, but he won't be showing up.
He doesn't show up until for a while.
Yeah, 1 year later.
1 year later, yes. And so then back comes Apophis through this gate because what they realized a gate's been activated. They can tell when gates have been activated. They have the technology.
Yep.
And so there's Teal'c again, who is being attacked by U.S. Air Force, as well as these kids on Abydos. And he grabs Skara and says, where'd you get this gun, man? Like, this isn't yours. Like, what, how do you, I've seen this before, though.
Yeah.
Where'd you get this, man? And again, though, like you said, those wheels are starting to turn. Oh, man. And then he's probably wondering himself, too, what happened here? I thought this was Ra's planet.
Yep.
You know? And he's like, wait, what the heck? And so there's Shari trying to escape and Skara trying to escape. Fucking Ferretti's been shot to hell.
Yep.
Kowalski's, trying to tend to the wounded and everything, and back through the gate goes Apophis with Skara and Shari. Ah, yes, this one will do nicely. Excellent. And back comes Daniel and Carter and
O'Neill with two
O'Neill, and they're all like, no, kind of the Darth Vader style. The fact that Skara's gone, Shari's gone, Daniel wants to go through the gate right now and beat someone up.
Yep.
He's so pissed. And then Daniel, he's telling the kids, I gotta go, man, gotta go. Then you gotta cover the gate, and they're like, wait, you're not coming back? Daddy not coming back? Daddy Daniel's not coming back.
Yeah. But he agrees to come back 1 year later. And
then he says, okay, fine. 1 year later, remove whatever blockade you put on that gate. And if I don't come through with Shari, and then cover it again permanently. But I'll try and come back 1 year later. With Shari. And
we'll get to that in a future episode.
Yes, we will. And so then they're like, all right, fine, Daniel, I gotta take you back. Let's go back. They all go back. And Daniel's like, "Hi, General Hammond. I'm Daniel Jackson. Nice to meet you. I want to be on your on the team that goes and jumps through the gate again." And he's like, "Screw you!
You have a lot to explain.
Yeah, like you have no room to demand anything, man. Like what the hell?"
And there's this major or light colonel.
Yes, Simmons or something. Yep. But he's the one that actually went and got O'Neill from his house to go talk to he's Hammond's executive officer, basically his executive assistant, his XO, his second in command, essentially.
He does show up from time to time in the future, but he doesn't. It looked like in this particular pilot that he would have been a recurring character on the show. And
yeah, like a main antagonist kind of, exactly. And you're right, he doesn't. It's interesting that they move on to higher profile actors, it seems.
That's true.
You know, for who the antagonists are, for sure.
And it also just, I'm going to guess that maybe sometimes these guys don't become available. Something else happens.
That's true too.
I know he became, I think, what's that show that Jamis was doing at this time? That wasn't B5. He became a regular recurring character on that.
Okay.
He was on this show, Joshua or Jeremiah.
Oh, that show. Yes, I remember that show with Malcolm Jamal Warner. Yeah, so Malcolm Jamal Warner. Yeah. And also you're right, because a lot of those actors in these shows, because of where it's filmed, which is Vancouver, they're all like these recurring characters. Like I've been rewatching Alias, and there's a couple of characters, like the actor who plays Share's father, another actor, Tony Amendola, who we'll meet, Braytak, we'll meet him eventually. He's in all kinds of these shows, so it's really cool, especially watching this episode. I didn't recognize, you don't recognize as many of the actors in this episode as much, which was nice for a pilot. There was Richard Dean Anderson and Donna S. Davis were really the only actors that if you had never really watched anything like deep cut sci-fi, you wouldn't really recognize. So that was cool to definitely see happen. And then if you watch Stargate movie, you'd recognize Skara, and that's it. Yeah, that's it. So it was really, you'd recognize the names, you recognize the places, but other than that, you would not recognize the actors. So you're right. Simmons is he disappears. Again, I think there's some actors that we'll talk about in the episodes they show up that are higher profile actors, maybe, that they're like, they have more presence on the screen. Because you're right. I think he's more of an antagonist, but more of the cynic.
Yeah, that's what I would just say that.
Yeah, more like a cynicist rather than an antagonist.
If you're a regular character in the show, he would be the doubting Thomas character.
Yes, exactly. You're absolutely right. That's a good way to say it too, doubting Thomas. I like it. So then they go and have this briefing, and Samantha's like, Carter's like, let's, we need to go all these different places we can go, all these things we can learn.
That particular guy is like saying, no, we should bury the gate.
And
Daniel totally nerd out with each other.
Yep. Yeah. And then, General Hammond's like, well, good thing the president agrees with you, Captain Carter. We're putting together 9 teams. Hey, Kowalski, you got a team now. You've got a team. And Dr. Jackson's like, I'm on the first main team, right? So we can go get my wife, go save her, right? And he's like,
I think you should stay here and work with us on this thing. And he's like, look, I got to go find my wife, and like, you will be an important resource with your knowledge. And he's like, I got to go find my wife, and you can't either you let me go or I'll go find her myself.
Yeah, because he's like, I can just leave and go back to Abydos and then, or trying, go find one of the new addresses and then go search the galaxy. Yeah, he and General Hammond says, I'll take it into consideration, which then, makes you understand General Hammond, what kind of person he is, and compared to General West from the movie, who was a hard-nosed, military man, while General Hammond is a big old teddy bear. Big old teddy bear. He's a grandpa. We'll get into that in later episodes. And so this team is put together. And then all of a sudden, they don't know where they have to go. But all of a sudden, Freddy's awake. And so Freddy all of a sudden remembers the exact coordinates of where Teal'c dialed to go back to wherever they're going, and so they got the coordinates. So they're putting together the team, and they're off through the Stargate again, and they're on this new planet. And that, I believe, is where the first part of Children of the Gods would have ended, I believe.
Yes, I believe so.
And so then the new episode starts, and they're showing Teal'c coming in. They're showing all this room of women, including the Air Force woman who got taken. And Shara is not there yet. She's still a prisoner. Yeah. So, no, that's what they're doing first. They go pick Shara from the prison, and then they're...
No, I think you have it right.
No, I think you're right. You're right. Yeah, they do the blonde woman first, and they take her. This is where they're in the Showtime version. They take her to go see Apophis. They take off her clothes, and in the Showtime version, they show boobies, and they show more than boobies. They show full frontal nudity, and then but in this, they just show literally her back, and then they cut to, Teal'c looking on, and then they go get the liar down, and in comes the Jaffa woman, and out comes the baby, looks at who's gonna be basically Apophis' wife, looks at her husband and goes, oh fuck no, this ain't mine. This isn't the one I want.
He's kind of disappointed because she is really hot.
Yeah.
But I guess his wife's not into blondes.
I guess not. Yeah. Hey, blondes have more fun, I thought. But so they kill her. And that's when they again cut to Teal'c, and the wheels are turning in his head. Wheels are turning. So then they cut back to Daniel, and they're wandering through the forest, and they tell him to set up a base camp, and they split up Kowalski, whose orders are if O'Neill's not back in 24 hours, you leave without him.
Yeah. And
then the orders are, if they don't hear from anybody within 24 hours, we're sealing the gate forever, ever, ever. Forever, ever? Forever, ever, ever. Oh, we forgot to mention the iris, because they have this iris. They do the iris when they first come back from Abydos.
Right.
Yes. And we forgot to mention they have this new iris, and they're like, what is this thing? I forgot about it because it's just so normal for me now to see the iris close. It's just like, I thought you all should know about it already. What the hell, guys? Why don't you know about the iris? What the heck?
This one's made out of titanium.
Yep.
And it is basically swirls around the Stargate and seals it off so no one can enter, which will come into play.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. So they've got their orders. So they split up. O'Neill, Daniel, and Carter go off, and when they go off, then it cuts to the prison, and that's when they pick Shara. And then they cut back, and they're talking to Daniel. Tries to go to talk to the religious guys. Says, "Hey, where's the closest town?" Oh, Chulak, and which I thought the planet was named Chulak. So, not just the town. So maybe it's the only town on the planet. So that's why it's just Chulak, and it's all just known as Chulak. That's a very big planet town that comes into play later in the series for sure. So then they cut back to Sharae being picked by Teal'c out of the room.
Yep.
And then they cut back to Daniel and them getting led into like a dining room, basically, or a hall, a banquet hall, whatever you want to call it. And they all sit down for a meal. And Daniel's like, "Oh, they think we're gods." But then in comes Apophis with his new wife, and who is it? It's Sharae. Dun dun dun.
Well, no, I think we skipped a moment there.
What did we skip?
When they think they're gods, they actually poison them with knockout food, and then they are taken to the guard prison.
No.
Okay.
No. What happens is they go in there, and Daniel tries to lunge for Sharae, and Sharae's like, psh, and blasts him into the wall. And then then Teal'c actually knocks out O'Neill to save his life.
Right.
Because if he hadn't knocked out O'Neill and the fighting had ensued, he thinks O'Neill would have died. And that's, again, those wheels turning. So he knocks out O'Neill, and he's like, let's take him to prison. You know? So then they're in prison. O'Neill wakes up. He goes, "Oh, my head." Then he sees Skara. He's all excited, and Daniel's like, they took Sharae. Skara's like, "I know," and blah. And then boom, in comes Teal'c and Apophis and Sharae and everybody, and they're like, "Oh, they're gonna be choosing. Oh, who are they choosing? The children of the gods." Which the name of the episode,
right?
Part 1 and 2, and so Daniel is like trying to offer himself up because he wants to know how much of the host remains, and they cut to Teal'c shaking his head like nothing remains, which may or may not be true. We'll learn. Yeah. Later in the series, we're not sure yet. Yep. And so Apophis is like, "Oh, this one has fight," referring to Daniel, but then Twist says, "But I choose this one," and chooses Skara instead. You were like, dun dun dun, and so Skara gets taken, and Apophis says, "Kill them all, kill the rest," which is funny. That part makes me think, wait a minute, they're speaking English. Like, how does everybody know English here?
Yeah,
but it's a TV show, so you try not to think about it.
Yeah, that one is something,
That's something throughout the series. You're like, how does everybody speak English? Yeah. Like, that's amazing. And they're like, I think they realized they couldn't.
Yeah. They don't come up with a universal translator like on Star Trek. They don't come up with, like in Doctor Who, psychic things, which could have been actually kind of covered, If you learn, whenever you go through the Stargate, you learn the language of the
that would have been interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then when you go back home, you forget it? Like,
yeah.
Okay.
No, we were going back to the place.
Yeah.
Language.
Yeah.
Reverse effect.
Interesting. That'd be an interesting concept.
Yeah.
The ancients. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. We'll talk about that later episode. That's like about technology of the Stargates and everything. Yeah. So now, though, here's where it gets interesting because Teal'c is with his guards, who he's the head of. He's the head guard, and so they're all lined up. And do you remember what O'Neill yells?
It's like, "Hey, I can save these people."
Yeah, help me! I can save them. And do you remember what Teal'c says?
Something along the lines of, "I believe you."
Yeah, but he also says many said that before. You are the first one that I believe can actually do it. And he shoots one of the guards, throws O'Neill his staff weapon, and goes and grabs the staff weapon of the guard he just kills. And him and O'Neill just murk the other guards, blow a hole in the wall, and O'Neill starts going and get everyone through, and O'Neill's like, "You coming?" And he's like, Teal'c's like, "I have nowhere to go." And he's like, "For this, you can stay at my place."
Yeah.
And so they get back. They're getting everyone through, and they're getting chased, and they got the gliders coming through, and then all of a sudden, boom! A rocket hits one of the gliders, and it's Kowalski, and Kowalski's like, "Oh, they got Skara by the gate, and Share's there," and the guys like, "Oh, we gotta get them. Let's go." And so they go and they try and get them, and they basically they fail because they get blasted. O'Neill gets blasted again during the fighting, and everyone.
No, I guess it's the first time in this show that we see the use of the.
Yes, the rings, yes. In the movie we saw it, yes, because obviously that's how the nuke got to the ship and everything. Yeah. But in the show, yes, that's the first time we see the rings to get to a ship. Absolutely. And so that was interesting. And this then all of a sudden during the fighting, Kowalski is, leaning over a Goa'uld, I guess, or a Jaffa. It's a Jaffa, and the larva, to save itself, jumps up and jumps into his neck, and then his eyes glow. And we're like, "Uh-oh, what's going to happen here?"
There's the thing that's going on around there. There's this giant barbarian guy.
Oh yeah, that dude is great. Yeah, that dude is great, especially because then everybody comes through the gate. They're like, "Shut the iris, and the last guys that come through are O'Neill, Kowalski, and the barbarian dude. And the barbarian dude is literally like this. When the iris closes, and I love it.
He goes with the ball with his bare hands.
Yeah. So then he's like, "What is going on here?" He's like, "We can use the gate to send these people where they belong." And now this is Teal. And do you know who this guy is? So what did you say?
Oh well. I believe Carter says you Teal'c's with us, or says
he's with us. Don't shoot him, he's with us. And Hammond's like, "Do you know who this guy is?" "Oh yeah, well yeah, he's the guy that saved our lives. That's who it is." And so then you see everybody, the four of them, who's going to be the main team: Daniel, O'Neill, Carter, and Teal'c standing in a line. Music plays, but then it cuts to Kowalski walking down the ramp, and his eyes glow.
Yeah.
And that's the series premiere of Stargate. Now, there's a few small details I left out that I'm going to talk about.
Right.
That are like Easter eggy kind of a little bit. When Carter first goes through the gate for the first time and sees the DHD, she says the line, "We had to MacGyver one of these back at the Pentagon."
Right.
And so that's a joke to Richard Dean Anderson.
Right.
There's definitely some parts of the show that show up in the pilot that really never show up in the series again.
Right. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention.
Yeah.
So at the beginning of this, we have a lot of stock footage made during the pilot that shows up in later episodes.
Yes.
And the alarms going off, and the big door closing, and guys running through. You'll see that footage a lot.
Yeah, the guys with the big guns pointed at the gate. You see all that footage a lot. Yeah, they use a lot of stock footage throughout the show. That's a good point to make. They don't, every time when they go through the gate during the series premieres, they get cold. They kind of get rid of that a little bit, because I feel like it becomes more of like you get sick rather than you get cold the first time you go through, and then you get used to it, is what it became, for sure. for now, that's really what there's. Oh yeah, I didn't bring up the fact that Daniel taught the locals of Abydos how to make moonshine. That was a fun little scene there. Nothing major plot like moving, so I didn't, I passed over it. But that's a fun one that they're out there teaching people how to make moonshine.
Yeah. Samantha and O'Neill approaching the gate, and like Samantha's like, once you get to know me, sir, you'll find me. And you're like, very nice. And I'm like, oh yeah, I already had it over heels for you or something.
Yeah, he already, yeah. Foreshadowing.
Yeah. Yes. And then she's like geeking out over the event horizon, and he just shoves her through.
Yeah. Those little tidbits are little things that make the show, give the show the character that the movie didn't have.
Yeah,
for sure. I think that if you go and watch the movie and then you go and watch the show, I would hope, and nothing against the movie, I love the movie, I would hope that you would find the show more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Because of its lightness compared to the movie.
Yeah.
For sure. I think that it's a great series opener.
Yeah, I think it is one of the best series opener. I think DS9 is better.
Sure, yeah. Well, that's partly due to TNG being around before it and the build up.
They had a lot more work but DS9 has and it's interesting. The Rick Berman and his co-writer wrote that, and they set so much stuff up with DS9, but they had no plans for where that was going. I think we get a bit more planning with SG1 with the way. I think they had a much more JMS style scheme for the show in mind, or at least from what I understand, they plotted out each season in advance.
They did, I believe, but I think also there's so much you can do by using mythology as its basis, the basis. That's where this show excels so much. And that's where I feel like a new show could happen, because there's so many mythos that they didn't even touch.
They're working on it.
They've been working on they've hit so many roadblocks. It's basically in development hell. The cast has gotten back together before on a website called The Companion and done readings of AI generated episodes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I watched one. I paid to watch like $5 for the month or something, and I was able to watch one of the ones live, which was great. It was really cool. So there's so much potential for this show still, and it's crazy that these episodes were 27 years ago,
right?
Because the writing is, and the source, it's just so much better than a lot of the stuff that's on TV today.
Right. And it's just, I'm getting back to the pilots. There's so many pilots I watch, and they just don't connect. Like TNG's infamous for having a terrible pilot.
Yes.
Babylon 5's pilot wasn't that great. The Wire's pilot is terrible. It takes you to episode 3 before you finally get it. So there's just so many bad pilots, then the shows get better. But I think this is, and that's the one thing you can say about SG1. I think this one is better than Atlantis's, but Atlantis has a pretty good pilot.
Absolutely. Again, though, because you have that. But you have that connection to SG1. You have that established, and we'll get to that eventually. 7 seasons of established SG1 before you get to Atlantis, and you've been having this buildup of wanting to find Atlantis. And we'll get into that later. But again, that's where we talk about the mythology side of things and why this show works so well. And what's really interesting is when the movie came out, I was moving to Egypt that year.
Okay.
So as a kid, and so it was very, very funny that happened. But then when the show came out, I was already at boarding school in the United States, So I didn't really watch the show that much when it first aired. It was more not until later.
I started watching it until general syndication, which I think
Yes.
happened around season 5.
Yeah, exactly, because it was on Showtime. It was on and so we didn't really have those channels. So, but again, it's funny going back now and watching it and the connection I have with Egypt. But then the show just expands it so much more because of all the different mythos that they cover. That we'll get into when it comes about in the episodes. So, I think I feel that. Anybody who, not that I think, I feel, and in fact, I know, if you've never watched this show and you watch the pilot, you'll really want to keep going.
Yeah.
You'll want to see what happens next. So, what kind of rating would you give?
I'm going to give this a 9 Charons out of 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna even give it I would say. Yeah, I'd say a 9 because there's a few like things that it like you're like, well, they could have done this a little better. They could have done this a little better.
Done a bit more. Like if they had done, they set things up. They had a lot of Chekhov's gone fired, but I feel a few didn't fire. And I just like I said, I mentioned I think DS9 is better. So I kind of like DS9's pilot came to my mind, and I'm like, okay, that's a 10 for me. We've talked about Rachel Hollick's coverage of DS9, and he can't get any episode a 1. He's the dumb one with that everyone hates with the singing song.
Oh gosh,
got a 2. So like, we have to establish a 1 somewhere. In my mind, I haven't watched this episode in a long time because it was so bad. It is probably, we'll discover the 1, I think, eventually. It's the one where you go to the planet and there's all these white people and it goes weird.
I think I know which one you're talking about. But I'll have to go rewatch a bunch of them. And as we rewatch and really figure out which one is the worst, because it's hard for me to figure that out right now.
Yeah,
because I haven't done a rewatch in like a year.
A very early episode I don't think that's particularly good either.
Mm-hmm.
It's the one with the Mongols.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. That's probably one of my least favorite. I would agree. Yeah. I agree. That's one where they tried to use bigger name actors. And that would be kind of recognizable, and it kind of fell flat. So, but these episodes definitely didn't fall flat. The only thing I would say is some of the effects were inconsistent. And some of the camera shots could have been better. But I think that's what happens on these sci-fi shows with the weird low budgets, but they have to look like they're big budget.
Right.
So definitely excited to keep continuing this series and move on to the next episode. Not sure when we'll how we'll do this. Probably be weekly that we'll do this. Maybe we'll do it with every 2 episodes, since this was 2 episodes. But
that seems to be
I think that's a better idea than trying to do 1 episode every week, because that would be a lot of weeks.
It's a very long time.
Yeah, it's going to take us years anyway to get through this, guys. But we're going to get through it because we want to educate people who have never watched the show and interest people who have never watched the show, and also show people who have watched the show what our thoughts on it all are, and maybe give people new perspectives that they never had thought of.
Yeah, and if we grow this little show up a bit, maybe we can reach out to some of the people behind the scenes people or the lesser known actors on the show.
Yeah, I know some of the old producers and creators are really interactive on social media. I know that. I actually interact. Joseph Maslazzi, who is an executive producer of the show and creator, he, if you like stuff or comment on stuff that he posts on Twix, as I call it, X Twitter, Twix.
And it won't get called X until you stop calling it formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I don't know why you can't just start. If you want to change the name, Elon, you just changed the name.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, that would be really cool. And we also hopefully are going to start a Stargate the RPG campaign as well.
Yep.
So we're hoping to get that started. So if you're interested in that, leave a comment about that down in down below. If you're someone who's interested in either seeing us play that or wants to play it, and we'll see if you're worthy of our team, of our SG team. And but we're gonna be doing this, lots of episodes, movies, 3 movies, and 3 shows, 17 seasons. I'm not even gonna figure out how many episodes that is.
Yep. Didn't Atlantis have a movie?
No, Atlantis does not have a movie.
Okay.
It does not.
They were
planning it after the season finale, series finale. There was going to be a movie, and actually, because we're talking about that real quick before we go, Joe Flanagan, who plays Shepard, he wanted it to keep going. He would love to have Atlantis continue or do a movie. Yeah, him and Momoa are big proponents of getting it back going. They were very sad when it ended. They've gotten together to do a Guinness commercial recently together, which was fantastic. If you haven't seen that, it's Jason Momoa figures out he's like 2% Irish, so he can enjoy Guinness with Flanagan. So he's like, I'm Irish. So yeah, but we'll get it to Atlantis eventually. We'll get to the rest of season 1 of SG1 next week. But David, anything else you want to say about Children of the Gods Part 1 and 2?
No. I think we've thoroughly covered this particular subject pretty well.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm very excited. Teal'c is one of my favorite characters in all of TV. Christopher Judge is an amazing actor. So all you people who know him as Kratos, go watch Stargate SG1 to see him as Teal'c. And we'll be back next week. Check out David sometimes.
I haven't done anything.
He hasn't done anything in a while, but go check out his stuff that he has done over on the Spy Guy. I'll put it at.
And you can follow me at Karen Taub on Twitter. I'm much more active there.
There we go. Twix. Call it Twix, man. Just screw both of them. It's Twix, man. And yeah, make sure that you do share this. And make sure that you click that like button and subscribe. And ring the bell so you get notifications of when more of these Stargate videos and other videos and live streams do pop up. Otherwise, we'll catch you later, guys. See ya.
Bye.